Hey there folks, Tim Slade here from the eLearning Designers Academy. In today's video, I'm going to share with you one of the most important and long-term decisions you need to make when building your e-learning or instructional design portfolio. And that's picking the right domain name. So stay tuned. All right, so a fun fact about me. Before I started the eLearning Designers Academy and my own business, I actually used to manage a team of instructional designers and e-learning designers at GoDaddy. And if you're not aware, GoDaddy just so happens to be the world's largest website domain registrar. And so that means if you enter a URL address for any website, the chances are that domain name, meaning the .com, the .org, the .net, or the whatever the case might be, it's likely a domain that's registered and managed by GoDaddy. Now, I bring this up because if you're looking to build your online e-learning or instructional design portfolio, one of the biggest and longest lasting decisions you need to make is which domain name you want to purchase and use for your portfolio. And I'll tell you from firsthand experience that once you've committed to a particular domain name, there's a lot of repercussions if you decide you want to change it later on. You see, before I jumped into the world of e-learning, I actually purchased timslade.com. And at the time, I wasn't even in my 20s, and I just thought it would be cool to own my own name as a domain name. However, after a few years, I accidentally let that domain name expire, which means that I lost the rights to it and it went back up for sale on the domain market. Now, if we fast forward to about 2012 or 2013, I was a few years into my e-learning career and I decided I wanted to build my e-learning portfolio. And that's when I discovered that a photographer in Australia who just so happens to share my name, they actually snagged timslade.com and built their portfolio with my old domain name. So that left me with having to go with some altered version of my name for my domain, which ended up being tim-slade.com. And I'll be honest, this killed me inside because I knew that most people looking for my portfolio were going to timslade.com, only then to realize that they needed to go to tim-slade.com. And of course, this was before search engine optimization was strong enough to account for my lack of a good domain name. Now, the bright side of the story is that I ultimately ended up winning in the long run because that other Tim Slade let timslade.com expire and I was able to snatch it back. And now I own well over 100 different domain names, many of which are variations of my name because I'm never letting that happen to me again. Now, I tell you that long story because I don't want the same thing to happen to you. And it's very important that once you commit yourself to a particular domain name, you want to stick with it. Because, changing a domain name not only can hurt your brand, but it can also have significant search engine optimization consequences. And trust me, when I had the opportunity to switch my website, portfolio, and blog from tim-slade.com to timslade.com, it took me well over a year to fully recover the SEO hit that I took with Google. So if you're looking to build your e-learning or instructional design portfolio, here are my top 5 tips for picking the right domain. All right, so my first tip is to pick a domain that's short, easy to remember, and easy to spell. And this one can be hard because the shorter the domain name, the likelihood is that it's already owned by someone else. Now, if you're hoping to use your own name as your domain name, like I use timslade.com, that's fantastic. However, again, the more common your name might be, the likelihood that somebody else already owns it. And speaking of using your name as a domain name, if you do have a unique name, you want to make sure it's something that people are going to be able to remember and easily type into their web browser. Now, luckily, this isn't as much of an issue as it used to be, since most people search with Google or click on a link directly before they manually type in a domain name. But it's worth pointing out nonetheless. Now, this brings me to my second tip, which is to use keywords in your domain name. For example, if you decide you can't or don't want to go with your own name as your domain name and you'd rather use something that's more along the lines of a business or a brand name, it can be helpful to do something or use something that uses a keyword related to what you do. For example, while I use timslade.com as my main website for my portfolio, the eLearning Designers Academy is eLearningacademy.io. And I chose to go with .io because the .com wasn't available. And luckily, from an SEO standpoint, that no longer matters as much as it used to, but it does include the e-learning keyword in the name, which is important. Now, this brings me to my third tip, which is to think about the future. As I mentioned earlier, it's not a good thing when you have to change your domain name. So you want to pick something that can scale with you and your brand in the future. So for example, if your name is Susie Q and you choose to go with SusieQ eLearningDesigner.com, you'll really want to make sure that e-learning design is the niche that you want to corner yourself into for the long term. All right, so my fourth tip is to spend some time researching your domain name. Don't rush to purchase the first one that comes to mind. Spend some time on GoDaddy's website or Google Domains and do a few domain searches. Also, it could be helpful to do a quick trademark search to make sure someone hasn't already registered a trademark for your desired domain name. All right, so my fifth and final tip when picking a domain is to make sure you turn on Auto-Renewal. Once you finally land on that perfect domain name, trust me, you don't want to risk losing your rights to it because you forgot to renew your ownership like I did when I first owned timslade.com. Now, luckily, most domain names cost less than $20 to register and less than $20 a year to keep. And whether you choose to purchase your domain through GoDaddy, Google Domains, or some other registrar, do yourself a favor and select the option for auto-renewal. You'll be saving yourself a huge headache in the long run. All right, so those are my 5 tips for picking the right domain name for your e-learning or instructional design portfolio, which of course leads me to my question of the day. What other tips can you share for picking the right domain name? Share your thoughts by commenting below. All right, as always, I want to thank you for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button below. And of course, if you want to learn more about building your e-learning portfolio or growing your e-learning career, make sure to check out the eLearning Designers Academy at eLearningacademy.io. My name is Tim Slade, and until next time, I'll see you around.